Hello?
Hey, Sam Dollar.
Yes, sir. Mr. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing today? What are
You
you
got
getting
me
for?
echo. What you got me echoing?
I'm going to have to turn that down a little bit. Got to adjust some stuff here. Uh,
Okay.
some people don't know much about you.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't heard from you in quite a while. I hadn't seen no tapes or nothing, so I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, New Year and stuff, uh, bad weather, things like that, hadn't been out.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's start right off with how did you get into wrestling?
How did I get into wrestling? Let me see. Uh, a lot of guys, they use that old cliche that them and their grandparents or them and their parents sat around every Saturday morning watching wrestling. And about 75% of those people, they are telling the truth, because back in the day when we didn't have but three channels, if you was a wrestling fan, you got to watch Memphis wrestling every Saturday morning. So from the time Hellraiser was a small kid, we had told everybody that he was going to be a wrestler when he got old enough, and I was going to be his manager. And never took it to heart that much. Just saying it, because wrestling was so popular out of Memphis, and so when he got 18 years old, I got a hold of Mr. Jerry Jarrett up in Nashville, and I talked to Mr. Jerry Jarrett, and we talked about the schooling. And the school took place on a Sunday afternoon. It was a 2-hour school, and I think they charged maybe $25 per hour. You know, in this day and time, you got a lot of guys that's never been nowhere. I'm the same way. I've never been nowhere, and I wouldn't know how to teach nobody how to do nothing. But you know, you got a lot of guys who never been nowhere, but yet they're trying to train guys to be wrestlers. So while I was talking to Mr. Jerry Jarrett, I said, "Well, how long does it take to become a wrestler?" He said, "Well," he said, "I don't know." He said, "Some people catch it right away." He said, "That's what we call a natural." He said, "Some people it takes a little while." He said, "Some people can be in the business 25, 30 years." And he said, "They still don't know what they're doing." And until I've been in the business as long as I have, I finally figured out what Mr. Jerry Jarrett was talking about. So, and then took Hellraiser to school up there every Sunday. That's back when you couldn't drive at 55 miles an hour on the interstate. So it took quite a while to get there.
Sound like
And
that was a
just,
long time ago.
yeah, that's back in 91 was when it was. Back in 91. You couldn't drive at 55. They were trying to save gas or do
Oh,
whatever
yeah,
they were.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you couldn't drive at 55. So, but anyway, we made that trip every Sunday, and we started in the spring of 91, and we went every Sunday. And Jeff, when we first got there, Tony Falk was there. And so when I walked in the door, Tony had when Hellraiser and myself first got out of the vehicle, I could hear this noise in the building, and it was at the Sportsplex in Nashville. And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "That sounds like a ring to me." So we walk in the building, and Tony Falk was the only one training that day, and there was about 9 guys in there, something like that. Um, Tony Falk walked over, he talked to us, and when Tony Falk shook my hand, he gave me what they used to call the old time wrestler shake. In this day and time, that's not important anymore. But what he was doing was he was filling me out to see if I was smart or not to the business. Well, we just, we told him we wanted to get Buster in school, and he looked at him. He said, "Well, go on in there and get dressed." So while Buster was in there getting dressed, I came in there a few minutes later, and I told him, I said, "Man," I said, there's something wrong with that dude out there." And he said, "What do you mean something wrong with him?" I said, "I don't know, man." I said, "You should have seen the way he shook my hand." I said, there's something wrong with it, something weird about that dude." He said, "Man," he said, "that's Tony Falk." And I said, Yeah, I said, you are right. That is Tony Falk. And so, but that handshake was very critical back in them days because kayfabe was a very big thing back in those days. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
In fact, the business, when Jeff started showing up, and Jeff started showing up every Sunday, and he taught the school. Him and Tony taught the school. There was a couple of other ones came in, but Jeff would run people out of the building. I was the only one that he would let stay in there, and that's because me and him had things to talk about. I owned a gym, and we drank the same supplements and this and that, and I used to sit right there beside Jeff while he was teaching the class. Sitting at a table right there, but he wouldn't let nobody else stay in there. I mean, he'd make everybody else leave. If you came with one of the guys that was training, you couldn't stay in the building. That's how big of a thing kayfabe was. Another thing is, can you hear me good, or is that some kind of noise?
Getting a noise there.
I didn't know if that was my phone or not. So, but anyway, Jeff was there every Sunday, and we went every Sunday. And then one Sunday out of each month, we couldn't train at the Sportsplex, so we got to go to Mr. Jarrett's house. And what it is, when you pulled in the driveway, brother, you thought you were looking at a castle. This house was so big, and it sat on 100 acres. And as you was pulling up the driveway, you pulled off to the left on a dirt road, and you went up to the top of this little hill. And when you looked down the bottom, there was a ring set up under the biggest oak tree I've seen in a long time. Had a little red Mustang parked there, and it looked like they had an extra ring in there, but this ring was set up under this oak tree. And the word I got was that's where Jerry Lawler, Superstar Dundee, Jerry Jarrett, Mr. Marlin, that's where everybody trained Jeff, they said, was right down at the bottom of that hill in that ring, under that oak tree. But nice days. It'd be in the summertime, and you'd be out there, and the boys would be sweating good, and it was just, I liked it out there way better. But you want to talk about a castle. Mr. Jarrett had a castle. I swear, it was just unreal how big this place was. So, we kept on going, and then in December of '91, when we took a break for Christmas, I think that's when Jeff went to do his first stint as Double J in the WWE, because he didn't come back after Christmas. And Mr. Marlin started teaching the class. Well, Mr. Marlin trains a little bit different than Jeff did. Mr. Marlin was kind of training you to get in there and brawl, fight, whatever. I don't know how to say it, but he trained a little different than Jeff. And then it wasn't long that, because the Hellraiser and Colorado Kid trained at the same time. And it wasn't long, Hellraiser and Colorado Kid was teaching the class themselves.
Now, a lot of people may not know who Colorado Kid is. You want to explain who he was?
Colorado Kid, his real name, I think, is Mike Rapada, which I wouldn't never put nobody's name out there. But I think he started going by Mike Rapada because you can only be Kid for so long. You know what I'm saying? And but a lot of people got a lot of stuff they said about Colorado Kid. They didn't like him, this and that. But I always thought he was a pretty cool dude. In fact, to business, he was one of the best baby faces that I've ever seen. I mean, he kind of reminded me of Kerry Von Erich, is who he reminded me of. But then again, he got hooked up with Bert Prentice, and Bert Prentice would never use Hellraiser and myself because, as they say in the business, we were too stiff. If you ever notice anything that Bert Prentice trains his guys for, it's very light. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's very light, and we weren't in there trying to hurt nobody, but we just wanted to look real, whatever we did, we wanted it to look real. So, and we didn't understand. We got blackballed like for a year, maybe 2 years, down in Arkansas. We got blackballed simply because we were too stiff, And but things finally worked on in, and we just kept right on rolling. And then, like I said, that's how finally we asked Mr. Marlin about, hey, it's done been almost a year. When we gonna, USWA was the goal that you shot for back in those days. USWA, CWA, whatever they want to call it. That was the goals that the guys had to shoot for because that was a stepping stone into the WWE. Nowadays, your guys have nothing to shoot for. You got 3 or 4 organizations over there in Memphis, and ain't nobody over there but the King can put you in touch with somebody in WWE that might would give you a chance. So Memphis wrestling is not what it used to be. They want it to be what it used to be, but wrestling in general is not going back to what it used to be. It is what it is now, and this is the way it's going to stay. It's just not, down here in the Mid-South, if you went back and you run your own shows, but you kept them like the King and Superstar Dundee and them did, and Jerry Jarrett and Mr. Marlin and Dave Brown, Lance Russell, blah, blah, blah. If you kept it all like they had it, then these older people that live in what we call the Mid-South, that's the kind of wrestling they understand. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now, the young people don't understand, but that's the kind of wrestling that the people my age and your age, that's what we understand, So, and then I know that you got one good company, one bigger company over in Memphis that is trying to. You see them quite a bit on the YouTube, and they've got their own channel on CW30, I think. And they do a very good job, but they're still not the old school Memphis wrestling. Every Saturday morning on old school Memphis wrestling, you could expect there to be some chaos somewhere because they had to build for the house shows.
Yes.
See, nobody runs house shows no more. I mean, you might take, and then another thing I don't like is I don't like this thing everybody getting together and we all brothers. You can have your organization down here on this corner. I'll go on down 3 blocks and I'll put my organization in. And it just don't work. I don't care for all that huggy or whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. All right, so you're saying that the way you got into wrestling was actually by getting Hellraiser started, right?
Yeah, the part about me being his manager was a joke.
Because that was something else I was going to ask you about. How did you become a manager?
I just don't know. Well, the first place we met the Atomic Dog. Over in Osceola, what I call the original Atomic Dog. And it's kind of crazy, but Mr. Marlin was right, too, though. We told Mr. Marlin we was fixing to cut out and go down to Arkansas and work in some of the shows in Arkansas because we found out about some. And he told us directly, he said, I'm going to tell y'all, but at this time, you got to remember, USWA was a stepping stone to the WWE. So Mr. Marlin told us, and then back in them days, it wasn't called Independence; it was called Outlaws. So Mr. Marlin told us both. He said, "Y'all go down there," and he said, "Y'all work them outlaw shows in Arkansas." He said, "You're never going to go nowhere." And I'd be darned if he wasn't right. We never went. We never hit the big time. We were close many times, but we never hit the big time. So and I just started managing Hellraiser. I don't know. It's kind of a crazy story, but there used to be a manager around here called Zeke Rivers. And we got tied in with Zeke Rivers, and so me and him made as he would call it, a gentleman's agreement, and we shook hands, and for $500, he was going to teach me how to be a manager. So I gave him $250, and so one night, there was about 6 or 7 of us. we all got in a van that I had, and when we got over to, I think we were in Luxor, Arkansas that night, and we were working for the Atomic Dog, although we didn't know who we were working for. And, you know, as soon as we got to the building, Zeke had everybody in the van put a mask on. And I swear it's the craziest thing I ever seen in my life. We didn't know no difference, you know. So we went on in the building, and Hellraiser, he goes on in the back, and he's sitting back there shooting the breeze with guys, you know. So I'm sitting up front, and I'm a little bit kind of weirded out, you know. I'm thinking, what the heck's going on here? So about that time, this dude walks in the door with a hood on already, and he comes up to me, and he looks at me, and I look at him, and we start talking, and I said, I didn't know he was the promoter, you know. And I just told him, I said, man, I said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I said, this guy in the back here, Zeke Rivers, I said, he done told everybody we done had a bunch of matches and stuff. And I said, this will be what you call our first match, if you want to call it that. I said, we ain't never even been in the dressing room before. I didn't know I was talking to the Atomic Dog, who was the promoter. You know, I didn't know it, you know. But me and him became very good friends after that. And then, I mean, it wasn't the second or third show we were on. He already had us in Missouri working with Hacksaw Butch Reed, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., Ron Powers, Vladimir Koloff. He took us in, and he finally made Hellraiser he had Tommy Dog had a company called the Continental Wrestling Federation. And Arkansas had an athletic commission. And the Atomic Dog was the kind of guy, he could run a show in a shithole, and he would draw a crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, packed house. He could run a show, and I don't know how he done it, but then a lot of times Eddie Marlin and them would get mad about it, and they would call a commissioner in Arkansas so that they would come and check him, because a lot of times things wasn't legal back in them days in Arkansas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you pay your money to the athletic commission, but they never do ever come in and check on you all the years that I've been playing this game, you know. So you're giving them the money for nothing, so why not try to run your shows like that without even telling them, you know? And, but yeah, Memphis would call, and they would report him to the athletic commission. And that's one of the reasons he only run a few shows a year. He only run, I don't know, a lot of times 3 or 4 shows a year. But at the end, we were down on Main Street in Osceola, Arkansas, and he had started a company. He had a good sponsor, which was with the Kiwanis Club, and we called it Power Slams. It wasn't Power Pro. It was called Power Slam Championship Wrestling. Now, I think one of the tapes you put on there is one of the first shows that we did, because it was Rough and Ready going against the Atomic Dogs. And I think if you watched, I watch a lot of films. I can't distinguish when I'm sitting there watching it from a table or something.
Yeah.
But when I can sit down and watch the film, then I can see the mistakes. I can see what needs to be touched on. That's why I try to tell these young guys, study the films, you know. You just got to look them over and study them over, you know. But, yeah, it's pretty cool. We did the Power Slams, and then I don't know why, because he had it made, but he's a very quiet, kayfabe kind of guy anyway. In normal life, he's very, very, very kayfabe. So, you know, kind of like me, in normal life, I'm kayfabe. I don't associate with people, you know. So, but anyway, somehow he let Motley come in, and Motley run a show in there, Motley Cruz. And then the next thing I know, Moondog comes in, and he turned, I don't know what the backstories were. And there was no arguing or anything. There was no fighting. There was no nothing. Moondog didn't come in and just take over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There was some kind of agreement made, and I think maybe the Atomic Dog was ready to quit. and get on about with what he was doing, and so Moondog took it over, and that's where we started with the Moondog Championship Wrestling. I mean, no heat, no air conditioning. We were down in that old Chevrolet building down on I call it Main Street in Osceola, but we did shows there, and we did them every Friday night. And I walked out there, and there wouldn't be but 4 people sitting in the crowd. You know, it'd be so cold in there. And I'd go back and I'd tell him, Moondog, I said, what are we going to do? I said, there ain't nobody out there, you know. And he said, he grinned and he said, we're going to keep right on running every Friday night till we do have a crowd. And I'd be darned if he wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? In due time, we built a big crowd, a community crowd. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You watch some of them old tapes that you put on of the old building where the new MCW is now. You look how packed that sucker was, and that wasn't just one. That wasn't just one Friday night, and then the next Friday night you'd be down. And ever since Moondog left that place, there's sometimes that they have downtimes for months, and they don't have but 30 or 40 paying customers coming in there. You know, so I don't know what goes on, what don't go on. But when Moondog had it, no matter if it was football season or what, Friday nights we still packed the house, you know. So, but Moondog was a good promoter too. You know what they say about a good promoter is when he leaves that show on that night, he ain't got to think about his next week's show because he's already got it laid out from that night. Yeah. And Moondog walked by me and he held his clipboard up one night. He said, you know, if all these guys show up, and I hope they do, he said, I got enough show here to go for 3 months. Wow. He said, I got 3 months worth of shows here, ideals and everything. And that dude could come up with some ideals too, brother. I'm telling you.
Okay, you mentioned a while ago that you and Hellraiser never did go anywhere, but you come close. Well, one of those places you came close was the KAW, wasn't it?
Yeah, Hellraiser went to KAW before I did, and he was working with Cruising for Pain. Motley Cruz, for some reason, Motley Cruz helped us so much, it was just unreal. And he didn't do it in a, hey, I'm helping you do this and I'm helping you do that. He just did it, you know. Never brought it up, never did nothing. This cat was just, like I said, but anyway, Hellraiser went to KAW first, and KAW was a new hot thing, and that's why it drawed so good. I never seen it, but I was told at 12 o'clock at night when our show used to come on UPN 30, our ratings were better than USWA's were at 11 o'clock that morning.
Wow.
But I think we were catering to a different kind of crowd, too.
Yes, you know. It was a very different type of show for the time being.
Well, I heard the rumors, but I heard the rumors that Mr. McMahon or WWE or whoever, at that time, ECW was running pretty strong too, if I remember correctly. And they were worried that KAW was going to become a Southern ECW, And so, and that's what I tried to tell Terry Golden. When I found out what was going on, I tried to tell Terry Golden, I said, look, dude, I said, you got something small that somebody big wants a part of. Why you want to let them have a part of it? I mean, you must have something here if they're wanting a part of it, Right. And then KAW disappeared, and all of us was supposed to keep working there, but we all left in due time. The last ones that was there was probably Ron and Hellraiser, and the Littles, a lot of the regular guys, but most of us left. And KAW was good. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I've seen times at the New Daisy where people would have a 5-gallon bucket and it'd be half full of piss, and they would try to throw it on you when you'd walk around the ring. Yeah. It was bad. It was cool, but it was bad. And back in those days, people weren't people who did YouTube were not worried about copyright things. You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So that's why KAW could use the music that they used, And I don't think, I don't know, Terry Golden could have took out some kind of copyright thing. I have no idea about any of the inner workings of what went on over there, I liked working over there. It was just good, we did a lot of shows. And we were on KAIT TV at 12 o'clock at night in Jonesboro. We were on UPN 30 in Memphis at 12 o'clock at night, and we were also on a station in Tupelo, Mississippi at 12 o'clock at night. And, it was a good thing. It was really, really, really a good thing. I mean...
Yeah, I never did know much about KAW until I got all those tapes from you. And then I have seen it on TV before, but where I lived at the time, didn't hardly ever get those channels, and it'd just be a happenstance to come across it or something, when it was running.
Yeah, well, I think we were just on the 3 channels there, and we had some so-called big stars come through there, but we didn't have no real big stars. I guess if you want to call Sid a big star, we had Sid. And at first, he wasn't too cool with it, but after a while, I think that really superstar Bill Dundee really enjoyed working over there. Uh-huh. I really think he did, because it was something different, And at that time, I think USWA was already a sinking ship at that time. I'm not for sure, It was already going down or whatever. I don't know nothing about the inner workings, so you can't quote me on nothing. I ain't got nothing bad to say about nothing or anything. So, but we had some good times, man. I mean, them shows was crazy. We'd be at the New Daisy, man, and when the strippers would come from the strip club, they'd come through in the back room and be walking around, and oh man, we would drinking, and we could drink, we could do whatever we wanted to. It was wild, but evidently there must have been something there, because we drawed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We drawed, and evidently there must have been something there. And I ain't saying we regularly draw. We drawed everywhere we went. I mean, when that KAW intro came on and that music kicked in, man, you could be watching TV and I'd get goosebumps thinking about it. We just, it was wild, Mr. Paul. It was wild. It's one of the wildest places I ever worked.
Yeah, I've gathered that from the videos I've seen of it.
Yes,
now,
yeah.
As a manager, you've had a few, I call them factions, like the Brotherhood of Sound, Family of Pain. You even managed Rotten Crew there for a bit, too, didn't you?
Yeah, well, normally Rotten Randy took care of the Rotten Crew, but Rotten Randy had to step out for a few minutes. He's a good dude. I've known him for a long time, and him and Cannon are very good friends, and I consider him a good friend, not as good as him and Cannon are. But Rotten Randy always managed the Rotten Crew. He was part of the Rotten Crew. I was just a manager there, and he had to step out for some reason for a while, so I think Cannon is the one who came to me and asked me if I could take over for a little while till Randy got back. And I said, well, sure, it's no problem, So, but yeah, the Brotherhood of Sam, I think Ox is the one who made that up, the name, the Brotherhood of Sam. And then when I got with Sarge and Mickey Ray, I can't remember how we did the Family of Pain. I think Sarge probably already come up with that Family of Pain before I got with them. I'm not for sure, because we were all 3 working for Aaron Poston. And then Aaron Poston tied in with Dwayne Huckabee on DCW. And Aaron kind of let ASWF go then, let it rest for a while, because he was doing a lot of leg work for Dwayne Huckabee on the DCW, So yeah, I like working at DCW too. I know one night. We were doing some shows over at Liberty Land on a Sunday afternoon.
Now this DCW was called Down South Championship Wrestling, wasn't it?
You know, I can't even remember what the name of it was. I know that.
The Rodney Max DCW was Dog Championship Wrestling, and I think I've seen this on them tapes. It was Down South Championship Wrestling.
Okay, but also down in Mississippi, in the part of the country where we were running at, there was another DCW too. Oh, okay. What did I say, DCW or what?
DCW.
Yeah, there was another DCW too. What DCW? What do we call that now? My memories. I hadn't eaten this afternoon, so.
Well, all I remember seeing on DCW was Down South Championship Wrestling. And,
okay.
And Rodney Max was Dog Championship Wrestling.
Okay, but there was also another DCW down in Mississippi somewhere. I didn't forget who run it, but they ran one down there too. So. But yeah, I'm gonna tell you, Dwayne Huckabee was a darn good promoter, but he got starstruck. And when you get starstruck, that's when you make a mistake and you spend a lot of money you ain't got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
DCW could have went a lot farther than it went if he hadn't got starstruck. You know, it was during their off times. But he was bringing in Mick Foley. He was bringing in Kevin Nash, and you know, it was during these dudes' off times from where they were working at. You know, sometimes they leave WWE and then they come back. You know, yeah. And this was during their off times, and but I wouldn't have never spent that money in to bring them in because you know my boys was already drawing anyway. One thing I don't understand is if you got a good crew of boys and then you want to bring in some old stars from the past, which is cool, but why do that when you can take the boys you got that are there for every show you got, and why can't you just give them more money? Right. But do you realize that I got in on the tail end? But back in the old days, guys didn't discuss their PO with each other. You know what I'm saying? Uh-huh. Guys did not discuss their PO with each other, not unless they were really close and they traveled together. And 9 times out of 10, they both made the same amount of money. So, but then after I got in, I still wouldn't say anything about my PO because that's the way I was taught. But guys had started talking about their PO. Now, you got to realize this has been about 30, 35 years ago. And so I was in Paragould, Arkansas, maybe a year or so ago or something, you know, and I heard 2 of the young guys talking, and it was packed house, you know, and I can't remember if I don't remember if there was any stars in or what, but I heard one of the young guys, you know, he was talking about his pay and telling the other guy, he said, I didn't get but $10. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking in my mind, you know, dang, as big a crowd as that was, and there's no more Arkansas State Athletic Commission, and you're making the same thing that I made 35 years ago when I started, we got something wrong here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We
got something wrong here. These promoters going to have to learn. You ain't the one going to be able to make all the money yourself. You're going to have to pay your talent, you know. And there is a few top-tier talents that still draw a little bit of money, but they don't draw that much money, you know. They don't draw as much as it would be if you brought a Doug Gilbert and a Tommy Rich in, which don't get me wrong. I don't know nothing about Doug Gilbert at all, but I love Tommy Rich to death. Everybody says that Ricky Morton is the greatest babyface that ever lived, but that's not true. You go back and watch the Georgia Championship Wrestling, and you'll see who the greatest babyface that ever lived was, and that's Tommy Rich. I mean, Tommy Rich, baby. But then again, you got to understand, you're talking about 2 different kind of faces.
Uh-huh.
Tommy Rich wasn't flamboyant. Ricky Morton's flamboyant. Tommy Rich wasn't a braggart. Ricky Morton, he likes to brag about what they're going to do and what they ain't going to do, which is cool. You're just dealing with two different kind of baby faces. But to me, a face should be very humble. He shouldn't brag. He should be very humble. I mean, even, when he's out doing interviews and stuff, that's when he really needs to be humble. Because if he's a face, he wants the people to love him. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So just like a heel, Moondog used to tell me, he said, I don't know what it is about you. He said, but you can walk out that door and you ain't got to say a word and already they hate your guts, So I don't know. Moondog told me one time, he said, you nice in the dressing room and you're nice and cordial to everybody. He said, but I get the strange feeling that in real life, the reason you're such a good heel is because you're a real asshole. And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I'm just telling you. He said, I can't keep protecting you. He said, I'm having to go out here and protect you from people trying to get you, And he said, I can't protect you forever, So, but, he just.
The first time I ever met you back in 2010 was over in Newport, SWA. And,
yes.
You come out there as a manager, and I thought, man, I thought they'd brought somebody in, You made me think of a big-time manager, And
yeah.
Just your air about you, You was a manager, a real life manager.
Well, I took it serious. I mean, I took it serious. I made sure that I dressed always. Mm-hmm. I worked out on a regular basis. Kept a good tan. I wasn't your normal manager. You know what I'm saying? Right. What they classify as your normal manager. I mean, take a look back at the USWA managers that's come through there. And even though, let's just say, for instance, Zeke came through there. He was a little skinny dude, wasn't big enough for nothing, wasn't able to do anything. I don't know what it was. I think Jerry the King liked his managers to look kind of dirty. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it was because I was just too strong of a manager or what, but I always tried to carry myself a little different, And I was serious about being a manager if I was going to be one, Yeah. And it was just, I don't know, and I loved working in Newport. I love those people over there, Mr. Sam and his family and everything.
Yeah, they were good people.
Good people. I hated when they closed down. I really did, because we had started working on something over there too,
Uh-huh.
And I really hated.
He was another one, like you were talking about Moondog. He had his matches planned out.
Oh yeah.
Good ways ahead.
Yeah. He. I really like working with him. I really liked him. I mean, you see, whenever he first started that thing originally, I was supposed to have been the one to go in and run the back room.
Uh-huh.
Well, he came over to Osceola one night, and I was helping Big Daddy in the back. And anytime I work in the back, I don't work on the floor.
Yeah.
So, but the girl I was going with at the time, he asked her, he said, is Sexy going to come out tonight? And she said, no, I don't think so. Said he's helping in the back room. Well, from then on, I wasn't running the show anymore, because I think he wanted me on the floor,
Uh-huh.
And I think he knew that if I run his back room, I think that he knew that I wouldn't be working on the floor,
Yeah.
I love that over.
When SWA, when they moved to the second building, when I first started over, it was like an old fire department building or something. And then they moved a little more downtown on the main part of town.
Yeah.
I was there one night, and I always got there early and stuff, and I'd drive from Jonesboro and got over there. Went to get my cameras and stuff out, and I'd run off and left them at home.
Man.
I told Sam, I said, I don't think I've got time to run back home and get my cameras and come back. And he said, well, you can just sit here at the table with me and help me do commentary. So I sat there at the table with him, because he was doing most of the talking. And then something happened, he had to go in the back, and he said, here, take over for me. And I thought, oh, okay. And every time go to make a move, and I'd go to call something, and they're done 3 moves ahead. I said, "Ooh,
Yeah.
That stuff ain't very easy to do."
Yeah. Yeah, you would have worked into it though, Mr. Paul. I swear you would have. You've been around the wrestling business so long that you've got to fine tune on what's going on, and you could do just I can do anything when it comes to the business, but there's things I don't like to do.
Yes.
I just don't. I don't. There's certain things I just don't like to do. So I will do them if it's required of me. I will do them. But yeah, I really did like those people. I like that family. Um, just Mr. Sam, he gave me. He just gave it to me. He just gave it to me. And he just let me run wild with it, and we run some pretty good angles. It was pretty bad when I called his son a little ugly kid or something. I forgot. And then one of his daughters, it was her kid. She come and she said, "My kid is not ugly." So, but and then later on in years, I got to where I'd circulate and talk a little more to the guys. But most time I wouldn't. I most time kept to myself. So, but yeah, yep. Them were some good times. And I liked it when we moved downtown. I would have liked to have ran that back room, but
I just wish I'd had a better camera at the time, because Sam liked it dark in there, and the camera just didn't pick up good. And of course, they wasn't near the quality of the cameras I've got nowadays. But a lot of my videos from then are grainy, and
yeah.
I like to be able to see it good. What I'm watching when I record something.
Yeah, well, you were in the learning stage yourself too. If I'm thinking about it.
I just started. That was my second year.
I don't know why people do that, but they'll turn all the lights out and have the lights shining down on the ring only. Well, if you go to a place and they leave all the lights on, you'll see a different atmosphere in the room.
Yeah.
I just don't like that.
I think back at the time they were trying to just focus the attention on the people in the ring.
Yeah,
but, and that's the way it was in older days.
Yeah. But, well, I like I say, that's like when you go to MCW. For some people, they'll turn the lights out, and all you can see is these strobes going around the room, but you're in total darkness for a few minutes there. And I don't know, if you go back and check on some of your stuff, and you'll see that a lit up room with the lights on, all the way around, it just seems to me it makes a better atmosphere or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen people that did like Mr. Sam. They would turn all the lights off around the ring and just leave the lights focused on the ring. So, and it's just according on what you like and what you don't like, as far as sitting in the crowd in the dark, I don't think I would like that very much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can still see a little bit, but, and then another thing is, if there's no distractions when you got all the lights off, they can see the mistakes that the guys make a lot easier.
Yeah.
See, if there's nothing but a light on the ring, and the guys, some of the guys happen to make a mistake or something, the people can type in on it. But if you light all the lights on, these people over here, they're talking about this, they talk about that. You might miss something that, it might be a good thing that you did miss it.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of tapes that I've watched. I'm watching the tapes, and I'm listening to the boys talk in the ring. And even though there is no kayfabe, and even though the people in the crowd know just as much about the wrestling as most of the wrestlers do, and I really think that the crowd has learned to accept the fact that you do talk in the ring.
Yes. Yeah, when I first got started, I used to notice that I could hear them talking, and I would cut that out, and I would put music with the video instead of the actual sound. And then some people didn't like that. Some people did. The ones that knew why I done it, it wasn't no problem. But other people didn't. But nowadays, like you say, people know so much about it. There's nothing to keep kayfabe anymore. So I just let it go. You hear it, you hear it.
Yeah, and it's not going back.
No.
I mean, people need to accept it for what it is. It's always been entertainment. Always. But, like I said, it's always been entertainment. But if you think back, a lot of the stuff in New York that they copied it from Memphis wrestling. There's something about Memphis wrestling, this part of the country. People love wrestling in this part of this, I call it the central part of the United States. We call it everybody else calls it the Mid-South, And I think that because we're not even in the South, so I think the reason they call it the South is because anything below the Mason-Dixon line is north and one south, So I think that's the reason they do that. I'm not for sure, but it's good to hear from you, man. How's your family doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Everybody's doing good.
Okay, no sicknesses or nothing like that. I've been meaning to call you.
We've had touch of it here and there, but nothing serious. I mean, it's winter time. You're going to get sick in the winter time.
Yeah.
You're out in it, especially.
Yeah, I've been meaning to call you just to see what was going on. I see a little bit of stuff on Facebook, but I'm cool with Facebook, but I'm just not that big of a Facebook person, And if I do put anything on Facebook, because most of my friends that I have, the few that I do have, I've only got about 3 that's not in the wrestling business, 3 or 4. And but most of them, I've had people friend me, and I won't friend them if they're not wrestlers, if they ain't been in the business. Even if I went to school with them, I won't friend them. I want to talk about wrestling.
Yeah.
I don't care to look at food. I don't care to look at you kissing your wife. I don't care to look at you telling your wife you love her. I don't care to look at that crap. I'm interested in it. If you see me put anything on there, it's gonna be about wrestling. Not unless I figure out how to put my pretty face on there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a crying shame. Every morning I get up and I'm going to be 66 years old. But I look in the mirror and I think to myself, man, it's a crying shame that a man can be so pretty. You know what I'm saying? Especially 66 years old, dude. I'm just saying that, it's just crazy. And I had a good wrestling life. You hear the big stars talking about they live like a rock star. Very few of your independents. I lived a good life. I had women that would buy my clothes for me. There were many nights I could walk out to my Tahoe and there'd be a couple of women waiting on me out there then. And so it's not just your big stars who live like rock stars, And even though we wasn't in Hollywood or nowhere, back in the day, that's the way wrestling was. Yeah. Back in the day, that's the way wrestling was. And so good or bad, right or wrong, if you were true about how you wanted to be in the business, that's the way it was, So I had a lot of fun. But also then I never hung around with nobody. I'd see you at the show, and then I wouldn't see you till the next show. We didn't talk very few of us talked on the phone or anything, I think I've talked to you more than I've ever talked to anybody. And then I've talked to Pedro quite a bit. And, I'm just not into mixing. Yeah. When the show's over with, the show's over with. I'm going to go do something else, So.
Well, we've talked a lot about your past. What about your future? Got any plans for the future? You going to get out of it, or are you going to try to do anything else? Have another run at it?
I tell you what, Mr. Paul. I just can't go back to doing what I was doing as far as the managing that I was doing around here in the Mid-South area because it's redundant. Then another thing, the people in the crowd get their feelings hurt so bad that there's certain things you cannot say. And if you have to be censored as a manager, I mean, you know, you can't be out there cursing and all that. I never curse. I never do none of that stuff. But in the old days, the people took it for what it was. Nowadays, they get their feelings hurt. Let's just say, for instance, you started talking about the fat girls. First thing you know, you're going to have many fat girls complaining to the promoters that they don't like you talking about the fat girls.
Yeah. Everybody's a snowflake nowadays. They're just a wimp.
Yeah, well, when you're looking around, you're not pinpointing anybody in the crowd. That's what I try to tell people. Don't pinpoint, because if you'll notice, a lot of the guys nowadays, they pinpoint a certain person in the crowd. And you don't do that. You glaze over everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, you might have an old man or an old woman. You can aggravate an old woman and let her come at you, but, you know, if she's 90 pounds, she's an old woman, and she's PO'd, and she's trying to get you to, and then you run from her, that makes her even madder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, you run from her, that makes her even madder, you know? And then sometimes you do get into heated confrontations with some dudes. That's one reason I don't agree with letting men be in the belt matches, is to be women only, you know?
Uh-huh.
Because you could have some idiot in the crowd who wants to take out something on you, and that's his chance to take out something on you, you know. Right. And I just don't. But, you know, if I do make a jump, which I'm thinking about it, I got to wait till they get close enough. Kentucky, I got to find this place in Kentucky. And then I've tapped in on the, you know, before the COVID, I'd already tapped into them, you know. Before, I mean, you had talked about it before the COVID. I told you, I said, I think I'm going to go down and try to work for NWA. Uh-huh. Because, you know, they were letting independent workers come in and give you a try, you know.
Yes.
And I hear now they're looking for tag teams, but I'm, you know, it'd be, you know, it may be the middle of the summer somewhere. I don't know when, but I think I'm going to make that jump if I get a chance. I think I want to, because if I go back to doing what I was doing, I'm just spinning my wheels. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I cannot jump to a higher organization, then I don't think, I mean, I done spent enough time in the business. I've done learned enough. If I can't step up, then there's no sense keep doing what I'm doing, what I've been doing. You know, there ain't no sense, because it's just redundant. You're going out there.
Things were still like they were, say, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have a problem.
You wouldn't have a problem.
Right now, everybody's so easily offended. You know, they might even get offended because you're older than them, you know, and you step in there and do a better job.
Yeah, I don't understand, you know. I just don't understand. You know, when you get my age, there's a lot of stuff you don't understand, but then again, you don't even try to understand, you know what I'm saying? So,
right.
You know, but yeah, I was working on this before the COVID hit, and then everything went to crap when the COVID hit. And I just cannot go back to these towns and manage anymore. I've worked everywhere in this area. I've worked in Mississippi. I worked in Tennessee, Louisiana. And I just, if I do anything, I want to do something bigger. If I can't do nothing bigger, I'm not going to say I'm retired. I'm just going to say I'm quitting being a manager, you know. Yeah. When you get my age, and, you know, when you get my age, the way I look at it is it's time for you to start running your own shows. And I could run my own shows, but I'm also the kind that don't like to lose money.
Right.
And I don't care what anybody tells you. You're going to lose money when you start running shows. Because my main thing is I'm going to pay my boys good first before I do anything else. I'm going to make sure my rent's paid. I'm going to make sure that my concessions are paid. I'm going to make sure all of that's paid, but I'm also going to make sure my boys get more money than what they've been getting. It's time for them wages to go up.
Uh-huh.
I mean, 30 years, and these cats are still getting, and this promoter's walking out of there with enough money to last him all month long that he lives off of. You just don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's the reason it would be a losing proposition if you do it the right way, and if you stay in there long enough. As long as I could break even every show and didn't have a dime come out of my pocket, but still pay the boys good. My main goal is, after I heard that $10 deal over in Paragould that night, I didn't say nothing, but I'm sitting there thinking, that's what I made 35 years ago, and these dudes still making $10. What do we got going on here? You know, somebody needs to wake up and tell these Arkansas. I know Arkansas, but it's the same in Tennessee. These boys in Tennessee don't get $10, $15, $20. You know what I'm saying? And that needs to change. And Tennessee hadn't had an athletic commission in forever, you know. But the pay has been the same as it always was. And the promoter wants to walk out of there with the biggest part of the money. Me, if I did run my own shows, which I'm not ruling it out, but if I did run my own shows, I would use nothing but young guys, and it'd be the guys that I pick out. I would use none of my buddies. I would use none of the older guys that's my age. I would use nothing but young guys, and I would make sure that they got paid good, and just kind of go from there, you know. So if I could walk out of there and get in my vehicle and drive off, and the only money I'm out of my pocket is what I'm going to stop and eat on the way in that night, then I don't mind running my own shows. Right. But your first couple of shows, you know, and like I say, it ain't beyond. I might start running my own shows, but I'm not looking at it to make money. I'm looking at it to, as long as I break even, that's all I care about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it seems to me like nowadays most of your promoters are trying to make all the money themselves, you know, or take it home or whatever. I don't know how it works, but I just know that when I heard that young man talking, and I thought, damn, you know, 35 years ago, however long I've been doing this, I started out with a hot dog and a Coke. When I got my first $10, I was the happiest sucker there was in the world, you know. Yeah. So it means I finally got an envelope. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but anyway, that's just. I mean, I don't know how I got to go and do what I did and go where I went. I just don't know how it happened. It just happened, you know.
Yeah. Right place at the right time.
I guess so. I didn't plan it, but I'm gonna tell you something. I've made a lot of shows in my time, a lot of different places, a lot of different shows, but I never made it to the big time. Worked with a lot of big name guys, you know, but never made it to the big time. But now you got to understand. Also, a manager used to be a big deal in the wrestling. Well, in '91, when I got in, managers had done started dying out. You know, now your independents now, they're running managers, and pretty good. But dang, you got an independent on every corner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So. You know, it'd be kind of crazy to try to run a show right now unless you had a guaranteed town that you knew. The only way I would run a show my own self right now is if I sold enough advance tickets to cover my bills. If I did not cancel the show, you know, I wouldn't. I might one or two shows wait to see if people showed up, but I'd have to try to get pretty good bit of money from my advance ticket sales. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And I don't know. And a lot of people don't realize you're going to make as much or more if you got good concessions than you are off the door.
Right.
You know, if you got good concessions, you're going to make as much money or more than what you're going to make on the door. So, you know, I just don't know. If the right opportunity comes along, yeah, I might try to run my own show. I talked to Mad Money Mike about it. He's got a nice looking ring, and I sold mine and Hellraiser's ring. We sold it to Pedro. So, and that's another thing. Well, I wasn't in the business no time, and I figured out, hey, you need to go buy a ring. And I mean, I figured it out quick. And for the longest, we used to rent that ring out. We'd get $125 a night back in those days for renting it out. But then once I rented it enough to pay the ring off, pay what I had spent on it, I didn't rent it out as much, you know, because you know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to try to set up a ring, set up the place, and then try to still come out. See, a lot of guys, they can go out and play around all day and then just go get their bag and just go to the show and do the show. I can't do that. A show is an all-day thing for me. It's making sure my boots are polished right. It's making sure my clothes are right. It's making sure that everything on me is professional, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, like I said, I've seen a lot of guys go out and work and then just grab their bag and go on in and work a show. Well, you know, workers can do that. But for a manager, I think a manager should always look professional at all times, you know. So, anyway, well, I'm glad you called, man. I mean,
this thing's run over an hour now, so I guess we need to try to knock it in the head, and it's been good talking to you.
Well, I'm glad to talk to you. I mean, usually I talk to you before now, but like I said, I've been working here all day, and I haven't eaten, and I'm getting ready to fix me something to eat, and I don't know what I'm gonna do after that. I guess I'm gonna watch TV for a while, you know, and then
go to Mr. Balls on YouTube and watch some videos of old matches.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll probably go out about midnight and tan. Go to tanning bed and tan, and you know, I ain't saying what I'm gonna do and what I ain't gonna do, but I swear I got my mind on this NWA, and right now they're looking for tapes, you know. So all I got to do is tell them go to YouTube, and you can see tapes of what I do. And I just got a funny feeling, and I might be wrong, but I got a funny feeling if I stepped in, maybe they might put me to work, you know. And I really want to track that show in Kentucky down to see how far it is from where I'm located, because I would go up to that show in Kentucky and try to talk to somebody in the back room, you know, try to see what's going on. I mean, that would be a darn good place to get broke in at. You don't ever know. If the mood's striking me, I may get ready and I may drive up that way. If I can get there, you know, early and you know, it's very unlikable that this would happen, but that would freak me out if it did. You know what I'm saying? If I did go,
you'd love it.
Yeah, I just can't. There's only two things I can do now when it comes to wrestling. I'm not retired. I'm not retired by a long shot. I still get around good. I still do whatever. I'm not retired. But I'm either going to have to run my own shows, or else I'm going to have to move up to a higher organization. You know, I just can't work around here. I mean, I might work a few shows here and there just to help somebody out, but I can't go back full force in the Mid-South area doing what I did for 30 years. It's just so redundant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the same thing over and over. And even though I would have to keep the cheap heat down in the NWA, but my main thing there is whoever they put me with, my main thing there would be to put my man over.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be there to put myself over. I'd be there to put my guy over. And then my work would speak for itself. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
A lot of times I do put myself over, but that's just part of the show. It's part of the gimmick, you know. So, but if I did get to go there, it would freak me out. It would really freak me out because that would be my last hurrah. You know what I'm saying?
Go out with a bang.
Huh?
I said you go out with a bang.
Yeah, that'd be my last hurrah. I swear. I mean, you know, just being associated with the NWA and doing whatever, you know. I don't know. I mean, I don't see me going to AEW, even though I could probably apply, but they're so crowded with talent that there's nothing for you to do there.
Right.
You know. And then WWE, I'm never gonna make it to WWE. After 30 years, if you ain't made it to WWE, you ain't gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? After 30 years, if you ain't made it there, you ain't gonna make it there. You know. So, but AEW, they got such a glut of talent that they are going to burn people out on wrestling, because that's what's wrong with wrestling nowadays. That's why your TV, if you've noticed how all your TV ratings are down, but your independent shows are packed, most of them, you know.
Yes.
Good crowds. So I don't know what's going on, but your TV shows, the ratings are down. But, you know, if you oversaturate something with something too much, then people ain't going to, well, I'll tune into it next week, you know, or whatever. I'm going to watch something different tonight, you know.
Right.
Where used to, all they do is concentrate on the wrestling, you know. They want to watch that wrestling, you know. So, but anyway, we need to get together sometime or another.